I was sitting in town thinking about the next trip that I was going to go on. I decided to visit China so I could get better goods. Obviously, I'm going to want to get the best goods in town so that I'm able to trade them to get more money to feed my family. I've gone to China plenty of times so that way I'm aware of what I can get from there and what I can trade. Sometimes leaving Japan may not have been the best thing in the world considering I'd have to leave my son and my wife. One quiet day I was waiting for my ship to pick me up, but nothing happened and nobody was coming. I was overly puzzled. I decided to find out what was going on my own. I learned that there had been a law that the shogun had enforced. He had decided that citizens in Japan were no longer allowed to leave the country. If I wanted to leave the country, I would never be allowed to come back. Well, at least not while the law existed. If the law wasn't demolished, I don't know what I'd do. Leaving the country and traveling was my job. I had to go and trade with other countries. There is no way that I could leave my family. My son needed me while he was growing up into a man, and my wife could always use the help. That night, I decided to go home and explain to my wife what was going on. I told her how I wasn't able to leave Japan anymore. She looked at me confused, so I told her that we are going to have troubles with earning money, troubles with getting resources. We had the option of leaving Japan, but this is our home. The two of us were born here along with our son. There was no way we wanted to leave. As I was sitting at home, I was thinking of all the things that I would miss out on with the new law. I wouldn't be able to trade with other countries. This was my job and my life. If I couldn't trade with other people, how was I supposed to keep my family healthy? I wouldn't be able to make as much money, nor would I be able to supply for my town. There was not much good I would get out of it. It took me a while to understand why the shogun had made the decision he had. It took me a while to understand, but then it all made sense. He didn't want anyone to be able to take his power. That had to be it. I didn't like the idea of him doing that. The only person given advantage to was him. The more I thought about it, the more mad I was. If the shogun was doing this, obviously it shows that he only cares about himself. He claims that he is trying to help the country by giving us a homogeneous society, which means that everything stays the same. I guess it might cause everyone to stay the same. It might take away the opportunity for people from other countries to come in and give their idea on things. If other citizens began to like those ideas they came up with, they might start wanting to change things. It is good that they aren't able to do that anymore. I still do not support the idea fully. I think that we should be able to trade. I need to be able to get the resources that my country needs. There is no way of doing that unless I am able to leave. I have thought about the decision that I would have to make. I heard a rumor about the law that said the Dutch were still allowed to visit our land. At first it concerned me, but then I put the puzzle together. The shogun must not have seen the Dutch as a threat, and that made them able to come back into Japan. This confused me because it was only the Dutch. Why didn't the shogun trust his people and let us leave and come back? It wasn't fair to us, and I don't think the law and isolation is a good idea. My family and I have decided that we are going to stay in Japan for now, and in the future hopefully we will not be having troubles with money and resources. We would always have the choice to leave, and if the law ever blew over and we didn't have to obey it anymore, maybe we could live the way we did before. I am not fond of the choice the shogun had made, and I guess there's nothing I can do about it. It gave disadvantages to me and other merchants from around. Well, it's about time that the law has passed. I have been waiting for this day for what feels like forever. I am ready to begin living the way I had been before the isolation period. I know that I haven't been able to live that way for a very long time, but trust me, I'm ready. I noticed that the ships were beginning to come closer to the land and ships were beginning to be built again. I was filled with joy. I couldn't wait until I could tell my wife about the good news. I began to see the foreign travelers coming back to land, and let me tell you, they are not hard to miss. They are very different from us. You can tell just in the color of their skin. They were so different from me, but I was happy to see them in my country. All I could begin to think about was how much better everything was going to be. Now I was going to be able to trade again, and not just with the people in Japan, but the people who were more advanced than we were. As people were coming in, I could feel the dust from the ground gathering in my shoes and it brushing against my skin. I was constantly wiping my arms so that it didn't feel so stuffy. The sweat from my forehead was beginning to drip down my small flat nose. It didn't feel so good, especially considering how dirty the air felt on my skin. I wanted to go home and wash up. When I got home, my wife came rushing to the door. She was confused on why the town was so overpacked. The foreigners were everywhere, and last she heard they were forbidden from the land. I announced the good news to her, so everything began to make a little bit more sense. Her face lit up like a Christmas tree. She was overjoyed. She began saying how it was a good idea for them to have stayed in Japan because now they know that it wasn't necessary for them to have left. I walked out of the house and went to think about everything my wife had said. She told me that it was good that they had never left Japan. If I was on my own, I think it still would have been the better decision to leave. I think this because I wasted a very long time in Japan not being able to do the best that I could. Maybe if we had left, I could have done so much more, and in the end, we would still be able to come back. I guess it doesn't even matter because everything is better now. We got what my wife wanted, and in the end, we got what was best for my family. I was so flattered that she was happy with the decisions we had made. Now I'm allowed to live my life the way it was before. I am so much happier that the law no longer exists and I am able to do my job at the best of my ability.